Did you know that 78% of adults over 65 worry about cognitive decline, yet neuroscience reveals a stunning truth? Many behaviors dismissed as senior moments actually demonstrate sophisticated brain function that younger people haven't yet developed. What your family calls forgetfulness might actually be your brain's executive decision-making at work. Today, we're exposing 8 misunderstood behaviors that prove your brain isn't declining. It's operating with a wisdom and efficiency that science is only beginning to understand. These aren't signs of aging, they're evidence of your brain's peak performance that most people completely misinterpret. Welcome back to the Senior Reset, where we're challenging outdated perceptions about aging and revealing the hidden strengths of the mature mind. Meet Richard, a brilliant 72-year-old retired aerospace engineer. At his granddaughter's graduation celebration, he paused mid-conversation, his eyes looking distant for a moment as he carefully considered his response to a question about technological innovation. His son-in-law leaned over to another family member and whispered, "Classic senior moment." Everyone smiled knowingly except for Richard, who was actually performing a complex mental calculation comparing current tech trends to historical patterns he'd observed over his 40-year career. This scenario plays out in homes across the country every day. Mature minds demonstrating sophisticated thinking that gets misinterpreted as cognitive decline. Has someone ever misread your thoughtful consideration as confusion? Or dismissed your careful analysis as slowness? Share your experience in the comments below. Today, we're exploring 8 behaviors commonly misinterpreted as cognitive decline that actually signal remarkable intelligence and wisdom. These insights might completely change how you view your own thinking patterns and give you the confidence to recognize your cognitive strengths when others miss them entirely. If you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our evidence-based insights on thriving in your senior years. And if you find today's video valuable, giving us a like helps these important messages reach more people who need to hear them. Let's dive into the first commonly misunderstood behavior that actually showcases your brain at its best. The first misunderstood behavior is what neuroscientists now call strategic forgetfulness. Have you ever blanked on a neighbor's name while perfectly recalling conversations you had with them months ago? Or forgotten where you placed your glasses but remembered exactly where your grandchild left their favorite toy? These aren't memory failures. They're your brain making sophisticated executive decisions about information storage. Groundbreaking research from the Stanford Center on Longevity has revealed that as our brains mature, they become remarkably efficient at distinguishing between essential information and trivial details. Your brain isn't randomly forgetting, it's prioritizing what truly matters. Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett, renowned neuroscientist and author, calls this wisdom-related knowledge pragmatics, a hallmark of cognitive maturity where your brain selectively retains information based on its practical value and emotional significance rather than trying to store everything indiscriminately. Think about it. Is remembering what you wore last Tuesday more valuable than remembering the life lessons you've learned through decades of experience? Your brain is making brilliant choices about what deserves its limited storage capacity. This explains why you might forget a new acquaintance's name, but perfectly recall the wisdom your grandfather shared 40 years ago. Or why you can't remember a recent movie's plot details, but can still apply complex skills you learned in your 20s. Next time someone points out something you've forgotten, consider whether your brain might actually be demonstrating its refined ability to focus on what truly matters. This isn't memory loss, it's memory optimization. What's something unimportant you've forgotten recently that might actually demonstrate your brain's strategic filtering? Share in the comments below. Your experience might help others recognize this pattern in themselves. And just wait until you hear about our second behavior, a trait often mislabeled as indecisiveness that actually reveals sophisticated mental processing most people never develop. The second behavior, often misconstrued as decline, is what neuroscientists call deliberate decision-making. Remember Richard, our retired aerospace engineer? His family frequently teases him about taking forever to make decisions, whether it's choosing a restaurant or weighing in on family matters. His daughter once joked, "By the time Dad decides where to go for dinner, the restaurants will be closed." What his family mistakes for slowness is actually a sophisticated cognitive process that showcases remarkable intelligence. Neuroscientists term this cognitive integration a hallmark of advanced mental development. A 2022 study published in the Journal of Experimental Psychology revealed something fascinating. Older adults typically consider significantly more variables and potential outcomes before making decisions than younger adults do. While analysing the decision-making patterns of participants ranging from 25 to 80 years old, researchers found that mature brains draw from decades of experience to evaluate nuanced possibilities that younger minds often overlook. This explains the profound difference between how a 30-year-old and a 70-year-old approach decisions. The younger brain might quickly choose based on immediate factors, price, convenience, or the recommendation of a friend. Meanwhile, the mature brain is silently processing additional layers, historical patterns, potential long-term consequences, subtle ethical implications, and wisdom gained from previous similar situations. This isn't mental slowness, it's mental thoroughness. Your brain isn't struggling to decide, it's masterfully integrating complex information in ways that younger brains simply cannot match. Do you find yourself considering multiple angles and potential outcomes before making decisions? That's not indecision. It's your brain demonstrating sophisticated analysis that reflects decades of accumulated wisdom. Share in the comments. What's a recent decision where your careful consideration was mistaken for confusion or slowness? And our third behavior might be the most commonly misunderstood of all, a communication style that doesn't signal rambling, but rather demonstrates remarkable neural integration. The third behavior, frequently misinterpreted as cognitive decline, is what researchers call story-based communication. When Richard's grandson asked him whether to invest in cryptocurrency, everyone expected a simple yes or no. Instead, Richard began sharing a story about the dot-com bubble he witnessed in the late 1990s, followed by observations about historical investment patterns, finally connecting these experiences to today's digital currency landscape. His son sighed. Dad never gives a straight answer anymore. What the family failed to recognize is that Richard's narrative approach actually demonstrates a remarkably advanced form of thinking. Groundbreaking research from UC Berkeley's Aging, Brain and Cognition Laboratory reveals that story-based communication isn't rambling, it's evidence of superior neural integration. When mature adults answer questions through narratives rather than direct statements, they're actually demonstrating their brain's ability to connect emotional, factual, and experiential knowledge in highly sophisticated ways. This narrative approach engages multiple brain regions simultaneously. The hippocampus, which is the memory center, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for executive function, and the limbic system, which handles emotional processing. This integration creates responses that aren't just factually accurate, but contextually rich and emotionally nuanced. In essence, when you explain something through a story or personal experience rather than a simple statement, you're not being long-winded. You're demonstrating your brain's ability to synthesize complex information into meaningful, multidimensional insights that simple facts alone cannot convey. This explains why the most effective teachers, mentors, and leaders often use stories to convey their most important lessons. It's not just engaging, it's cognitively sophisticated. Have you noticed yourself sharing experiences and analogies rather than just direct answers? That's not wandering attention. It's your brain creating valuable context and connections that showcase remarkable cognitive integration. Share in the comments. Has someone ever misinterpreted your story-based explanation as rambling when you were actually providing rich context? Our fourth behavior challenges everything most people believe about seniors and technology, and the truth might surprise you. The fourth behavior commonly misunderstood is what technology researchers call selective technological adoption. Richard's grandchildren often tease him about his approach to technology. He uses a smartphone and video calls with family, but showed zero interest in virtual reality or cryptocurrency, despite his grandson's enthusiastic explanations. Grandpa's just resistant to change, they conclude with affectionate eye rolls. But is Richard really behind the times, or is something more sophisticated happening? Groundbreaking research from MIT's Age Lab challenges our assumptions about older adults and technology. Their multi-year study revealed that selective technological adoption often demonstrates superior judgment rather than resistance to change. Mature adults typically evaluate new technologies based on meaningful utility rather than novelty, a distinction that reveals remarkable cognitive discernment. When Richard chooses not to embrace every new technology, he's actually demonstrating sophisticated pattern recognition. Having witnessed decades of technological evolution, his brain has developed an advanced filtering system that younger people haven't yet acquired. He's not failing to understand new technology. He's expertly distinguishing between innovations offering genuine value versus those providing mere novelty or incremental benefits. This selectivity reflects a highly developed ability to recognize patterns across time. Your mature brain has witnessed enough technological cycles to identify which advances truly enhance life quality versus those that simply consume attention without meaningful return on investment. Think about it. How many revolutionary technologies from the past decade have disappeared just as quickly as they emerged? Your selective adoption isn't technological confusion. It's wisdom born from pattern recognition that younger generations haven't yet developed. What technologies have you deliberately chosen not to adopt despite pressure from family or society? That careful selectivity demonstrates discernment, not decline. Let us know in the comments about a technology you've intentionally avoided and why. Your insight might help others recognize the wisdom in their own selective choices. The fifth behavior reveals a social preference many seniors are made to feel self-conscious about, when in reality it demonstrates remarkable emotional intelligence. The fifth behavior that's often misunderstood is what social scientists call conversational depth. At his granddaughter's wedding reception, Richard found himself at a table with distant relatives exchanging pleasantries about the weather and superficial compliments about the venue. After politely participating for a while, he quietly moved to join his old friend Bernard in the corner, where they immediately dove into a discussion about the changing nature of retirement in modern society. Richard's daughter later chided him, "Dad, you need to mingle more. People think you're being antisocial." What his daughter interpreted as poor social skills actually demonstrates advanced social intelligence. Harvard University's remarkable longitudinal study, tracking participants over 80-plus years, revealed something profound about conversation patterns and cognitive health. Their research found that depth-seeking conversation behaviors strongly correlate with both cognitive longevity and life satisfaction among older adults. In fact, those who regularly engaged in meaningful conversations showed significantly better memory retention and executive function than those who primarily engaged in small talk. When you find yourself gravitating towards substantial discussions rather than surface-level chat, you're not displaying social awkwardness. You're exhibiting sophisticated relationship cultivation. Your brain is prioritizing quality connections over quantity of interactions, a distinction that neuroscientists now recognize as critical for both psychological well-being and cognitive vitality. Dr. Robert Waldinger, director of this groundbreaking Harvard study, explains, "The quality of your relationships determines the quality of your life and the quality of your cognitive function. Your preference for meaningful conversation isn't social decline. It's your brain operating at its most sophisticated level." Do you find yourself energized by deep conversations but drained by small talk? That's not a social deficiency, it's emotional intelligence at work. Share your experience in the comments below. Our sixth behavior challenges everything we've been told about aging and creativity, and the science might completely change how you view your creative potential. The sixth behavior, often mislabeled as decline, is what creativity researchers call integrated creativity. When Richard's kitchen sink developed a leak, his son-in-law Mark offered to fix it immediately. Richard thanked him, but said he'd handle it himself. 3 days later, Mark was surprised to find Richard had not only fixed the leak, but had redesigned the under-sink storage system using an approach that combined elements from his engineering background with carpentry techniques he'd learned from his father decades ago. "Mark, why did you make it so complicated? I could have fixed that leak in 20 minutes. What Mark perceived as unnecessary complexity was actually a demonstration of sophisticated creative integration. Groundbreaking research from the University of Toronto's Creativity and Aging Laboratory has shattered the myth that creative thinking diminishes with age. Their studies reveal that creative cognition doesn't decline, it transforms. While younger brains often excel at quick novel solutions within single domains, mature brains demonstrate superior integrative creativity, combining knowledge across diverse life experiences to create solutions that are not just effective but uniquely comprehensive. This explains why so many artists, writers, architects and innovators produce their most enduring work after 60. Frank Lloyd Wright designed the Guggenheim Museum at 91. Grandma Moses began painting at 78. Claude Monet created his revolutionary Water Lilies series in his 70s and 80s. Frank McCourt wrote his Pulitzer Prize-winning memoir at 66. These achievements aren't exceptions to cognitive decline. They're demonstrations of advanced integrative creativity that requires decades to develop. When you approach problems by drawing connections between seemingly unrelated domains, applying cooking techniques to gardening or management principles to family dynamics, you're not overthinking. You're demonstrating cognitive integration that younger brains simply haven't yet developed. Have you solved a problem recently by connecting ideas from different areas of your life experience? That's not mental wandering, it's cognitive integration at its finest. Share your creative solution in the comments. Our seventh behavior reveals why being set in your ways might actually be brilliant cognitive design. The seventh behavior, frequently misinterpreted, is what cognitive scientists call value-based efficiency. Richard's morning routine is predictable. He wakes at 6:15, makes coffee and his French press reads for exactly 45 minutes, then takes a 20-minute walk regardless of weather. His visiting daughter observed this pattern and commented to her husband, "Dad's so set in his ways now. Remember how spontaneous he used to be?" What she viewed as rigidity is actually a sophisticated form of cognitive efficiency. Neuroscientists at Johns Hopkins University's Center for Innovative Care in Aging have discovered that routine-oriented behaviors often demonstrate what they call value-based efficiency, the mature brain's remarkable ability to establish optimized patterns that align with core values while minimizing cognitive load. Their research revealed something fascinating. Rather than indicating inflexibility, consistent routines actually free up mental resources for novel challenges. By automating predictable aspects of daily life, your brain conserves energy for tasks requiring creative problem-solving and adaptability. Think of it like this. Younger brains often approach each day as if reinventing the wheel, expending considerable mental energy on routine decisions. The mature brain, in contrast, has learned to establish efficient patterns for recurring activities, creating a foundation of stability that paradoxically enables greater adaptability when it truly matters. This explains why many highly accomplished individuals, from artists to scientists, maintain strict routines. Maya Angelou wrote in the same hotel room every day. Darwin took the same walking path each afternoon. These weren't signs of rigidity, but carefully crafted systems that channeled their creativity. Your routines aren't a retreat from flexibility. They're sophisticated efficiency systems that reflect decades of learning about what truly works for you. They aren't random habits, but carefully calibrated patterns that support your deepest values. What daily routine have you established that others might view as being set in your ways, but actually brings efficiency and meaning to your life? Share in the comments. And our eighth behavior might be the most powerful of all. an emotional capacity that's frequently misunderstood as detachment. The eighth behavior, commonly misinterpreted as decline, is what emotional intelligence researchers call emotional equanimity. When Richard's grandson announced he'd been accepted to medical school, the family erupted in cheers and excited celebration. Richard smiled warmly, offered a meaningful hug and said, "I'm proud of you, son." Later, when discussing a concerning medical diagnosis Richard had received, he approached the conversation with the same measured composure. His daughter worried, "Dad doesn't seem to get excited about anything anymore." Even his own health news didn't seem to